This is Solve It for Kids.
Hello, my amazing and curious friends. My name is Jennifer, the Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, and this is Solve It for Kids, the podcast that gives kids and families a peek inside the real world of scientists, engineers, and experts as they solve problems in their jobs using creativity, cooperation, and critical thinking. And now please welcome to the show my podcast partner, Galactic Space Geek, Jeff Gagne.
Hello, Jennifer, and hello, listeners. Wow, do we have an episode that is out there today. But it is not out there in exactly the way that you might think.
Oh, this one is gonna be so amazing. What problem are we solving today?
How would you send a message to E.T.?
How do you send a message to E.T., the extraterrestrial? We are going to talk about aliens! I'm so excited! Who is our guest today, Jeff?
Our guest today is the right person to be talking to.
Yes.
Today, we have the wonderful Julia Brodsky. She is a former NASA astronaut trainer. She is the STEM education lead at the Blue Marble Initiative and the founder of Art of Inquiry.
Welcome to the show, Julia.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, we are so excited to have you because the topic is amazing. I mean, we're going to talk about extraterrestrials. But before we get to all that, I have to ask this question. When you were a kid, did you think there were aliens out there?
Well, I definitely hope so, right?
All right.
I like that answer.
Was there something that you were into as a kid? Was it science fiction, maybe particular books or TV show or movies that sort of got you interested or thinking about extraterrestrial life?
So I was a big fan of sci-fi, and some of my favorite writers are Isaac Asimov and
Okay.
Stanislav Lem. Not that many people know about Stanislav Lem, but MIT just recently published the whole collection of his books.
Okay.
Wow.
And I highly recommend that you read it. And of course, Shackley and Bradbury and some people like that.
Those are great to get the imagination going.
Oh, yeah. So I'm curious, you're interested in extraterrestrials, and then you ended up kind of as an astronaut instructor at NASA. How did that happen? How'd you get from there all the way to training astronauts?
So I was a student at Magnet Math and Science School.
Okay.
And I was studying physics and mathematics. And then when I graduated, I was thinking, what should I do? I knew that I'm really bad with my hands. So
okay.
do something where I don't need to touch things. But after physics, seemed like something where you can actually think about things, you can imagine things, you can brainstorm, you can study the stars, but you don't have to touch something.
That's true.
So it worked really well. I wrote my master thesis about black holes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was analyzing data from X-ray satellites that were studying binary stars. And binary stars are the stars, our sun is a single star, but quite often stars are born with a twin.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was studying those stars and trying to figure out if one of the twins may actually be a black hole.
Oh.
Okay.
So that was quite amazing. That was my master's thesis. And then I was thinking, what should I do? And I knew that I really love science, but I also love teaching. And I just could not decide what is better. So guess what? I ended up as an astronaut instructor.
You got the best of both worlds there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I would like to know, what were you instructing them on?
Yeah.
So I was instructing the first expeditions to the International Space Station.
Wow.
And that was quite amazing because the station just wasn't there yet.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
Started it. I had to learn about the station. I had to figure out how it's all going to work. And I had to start training the crews without, the station being up there.
Right.
Oh my gosh. That's wild.
I definitely
Well-
think we take it for granted that the station is just up there and built now,
Yeah.
but it wasn't all that long ago that it wasn't there, period.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I had to talk to the engineers who were building the station, everyone, the programmers, the electricians, the people who do the life support systems, and try to figure out how it's all going to work together. And how do I train the astronauts so they actually can not only survive there, but actually do their job there. That was very exciting and extremely intellectually intense. I would spend hours in the library and talking to the developers of the systems. The thing that was even more difficult is that the International Space Station was built from two sides. It was built like Lego block, and you had a Russian module, an American module, a Russian module, an American module, a Russian module, an American module.
Yeah.
So we had to communicate with Russia. We also had to communicate with other countries. We had Canadian module and all other countries that would contribute to the International Space Station. So we had to learn not only about the engineering things, but also about the cultures of all of those people. We had to work to adjust our time zones so we could actually talk. That was all quite interesting. And as I said, very, very intense.
Well,
that's a lot of pieces to put together.
It is. Well, and then, of course, they have different languages. And I also heard that it was interesting because, like, everyone's on the metric system, but the US is not. And so it's like, how did you pick which one to use and how do you decide how to do different things? Were you involved in any parts of that?
So we really had to adjust our training to the Russian training to make sure that we don't have redundant parts, but to make sure that we actually cover everything that is needed. We didn't want the astronauts to waste time on learning the same thing twice. But we really wanted to make sure that they're safe. So we had worked a lot with our Russian counterparts. And that was the time when we really hope the International Space Station will be a beacon of peace and friendship.
Yes.
Well, and that leads us more towards our direct question, because you were just talking a whole lot about communication issues and making sure that all the communication works.
Good connection there, Jeff.
Thank you. I am going to jump us straight in. How do you send a message to ET
an
extraterrestrial?
Yeah.
So actually sending messages even to your friends around the globe sometimes is difficult. We had lots of issues, a lot of cases of miscommunications between the crew members, actually, or between the crew and the flight controllers team, especially because so many languages were involved and so on. So there were lots of funny and actually sad situations. So, but how do you send something to an extraterrestrial? People were asking those questions for a long time.
Wow.
And I will give you just some examples here. One of my favorite examples is the golden record that was sent on the Voyagers.
Yes.
Yep.
I don't know if your listeners have ever heard about that.
Tell them. Yeah, because this is really cool.
So in 1967, NASA was preparing to send Voyagers into space. And the reason they were sending Voyagers at that particular time was because all the planets move at different speeds.
Right.
And it is very rare that the planets create what is called a planetary parade when they're all in one line, right? So, but that was the time, and that happens pretty rarely. I think it's once every 175 years.
Wow.
wait quite a long time until it happens next time. But all the giant planets of the solar system were aligned.
Wow.
It meant that we could actually send a spacecraft to visit and take pictures of Jupiter, Saturn, yes, and ice giants. And in fact, some of the pictures we have that were sent by Voyagers are the only pictures that we have of those places. We really need to send more probes.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
To take some close-ups of those moons that orbit those planets and the planets themselves.
Wow.
But one of the goals for the Voyagers was not just to visit those planets, but to actually exit interstellar space. And
Right.
Wow.
we say that the solar system is like a bubble.
Okay.
It is surrounded by the heliosphere. And trying to explain to you what a heliosphere is, imagine that our sun
Mm-hmm.
is in the center of the solar system, and it produces what is called the solar wind.
Okay.
That actually, it's a very dangerous thing, all the living things. It moves slower than the light, but it's still very energetic. It's like parts of energetic particles moving in all directions.
Wow.
Other stars produce the same thing. So
Okay.
imagine that you and your friend sit across the table and you have like little pieces of tissues on the table and you start blowing.
Oh, I
Right.
like that. Okay. Yeah.
Your side and your friend is blowing in the opposite direction. Somewhere in the middle of the table, you will have, the boundary created by that
Right.
tissue.
Right.
So, as a crude metaphor, this is what heliosphere is.
Okay.
So, the Voyager was supposed to leave the heliosphere and actually enter the interstellar space.
Wow.
And we never did it before. So, the Voyagers will continue moving through the universe until they hit some planet or forever.
Right.
So we decided that we may actually send a message
Okay.
to other civilizations if they are there.
Cool.
So what we have what is called the golden record mounted on the Voyager. And the golden record has a cover with instruction. And it also has some sounds and images for the extraterrestrials.
Wow.
Now, you all can go to NASA website that keeps all this images
Right.
and sounds and check them. But the thing is, even if you take a look at the cover, it is extremely difficult if you don't have some technical background for an earthling to decipher what should I even do.
Right. Right.
I tried it. I asked lots of kids to guess what is actually drawn on this, or how do we use this thing? What should we do with it? And it is very difficult to guess, especially given that the disc was created at the time. The vinyl discs were popular. Everyone knew that, well, if you want to produce some sound, if you want to listen to the new music, you rotate the disc, you put a needle on it.
Oh, yeah.
And
The
Right.
vinyls.
Tarts.
Yeah. I grew up with those.
Tarts.
I know what they are.
Oh, see, you know.
Oh,
So
yeah.
for you, it will be easier. But for kids who never did it before,
No, they don't know what to do. Yeah.
what is this thing? But it's even more difficult, even if you figure out how to use the thing, to decipher the images on the disc.
How did they come up with this? Like, how did they decide? Jeff probably knows more about this than I do, so he can. But how did they decide what to put on there? Like, how do we know what an extraterrestrial would think and see and read? And
Exactly. First of all, who decides what should go there, right?
very good.
Yes.
Yep.
That's question number one. Now, when kids of our age look at those pictures, they say, what? No computers?
Yeah.
no smartphones, and we want to demonstrate that we're an advanced civilization. Life changed a lot, even over these several decades.
Yes.
We value different things right now. There are pretty few pictures of nature on this disc. It was mostly focused. It's very human-centered.
Yes.
These days might have chosen to put something very different in it. They have pictures that may look very strange to an extraterrestrial, even if an extraterrestrial can see them. And we will talk about it in a second. For example, they have a picture of several men running across the stadium. So the first thing I ask the kids, what do you see on this picture if you are an extraterrestrial? And they say, we see that people have 1.5 legs.
Because they're running, so their legs are going. Oh my gosh, that's funny.
That's terrific. And it's completely true, but completely false at the same time because it's not a way that we've looked at it before. So that leads into, you had mentioned we were going to get back to question 1. Who decides how do humans figure out what images, what things from an entire civilization to share with another unknown?
This is what I want to know.
This is a huge question. And the first set of questions was mostly chosen by NASA and NASA team and those people that they invited.
Okay.
But it looked like that we need to invite more people to decide this. We need to invite anthropologists who know how humanity is changing over the time. We need to invite historians. We need to invite linguists and psychologists.
Sure.
So this is one of the demonstrations where when people ask me, if I want to do something, if I want to work in space industry or something, should I be an engineer? Are there any other opportunities? Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. You definitely can do a research in space and be whoever you want to be.
Wow.
So, but going back to the question of how we're changing, right? Our values have changed over the centuries.
Right.
This message that we are sending to extraterrestrials, it will fly through space for millennia. We humans will change drastically over this time.
That's
Who
true.
knows? Maybe we will evolve. Maybe we will merge with artificial intelligence. Maybe we will genetically modify ourselves.
Yeah.
Our values will definitely change. The ways we communicate will definitely change. Our technologies will definitely change, which brings us to much more deep philosophical questions like, what do we value about ourselves as humans? Something that is not going to change. Or is everything going to change?
Those are hard questions, right?
Those are hard.
Oh my gosh. How could you represent yourself with a couple of images and some sound? I mean, I don't know. That's a hard one. Jeff would just be what? What would you be, Jeff? Would you pick a planet? Would you pick the whole solar system?
I have no idea.
What would you be?
I would totally need to do exactly what Julia said that NASA did, which is invite other people in. And this would absolutely need to be a discussion on how you go about this. This episode is a lot of fun in terms of, I do know about the golden record and I know a little bit about how it was put together, a little bit, not a ton. And moving forward, now that we have a whole new set of technologies and our world has changed since the 1970s, when kids think dinosaurs roamed the earth, and we have that much different about our society now. Julia, if we were to create, say, Golden Record 2.0 to send on a next spacecraft in the next 5 to 10 years, how do you think the new one would be different than the one that we can look up on NASA's website?
So this is one of the goals of breakthrough message initiative. People can get together and draft a message and get $1 million for that if they do it right.
Wow.
And it's open to everyone, including the kids. So everyone is welcome to brainstorm on it. But one of the approaches right now, of course, now with AI getting so popular,
Oh, yeah.
we now start thinking that maybe the first contact will not be biological to biological civilization. Maybe the first contact will be an artificial intelligence ambassador being sent to space to represent the humanity, which brings up a whole new set of questions like, can you trust that AI ambassador to represent you the right way?
Wow.
I love that. And not that I'm promoting anybody's, but they're good. You should go read them. If you have listeners, if you have not read Andy Weir's science fiction books, he wrote The Martian, and then he wrote Artemis, which is about the first lunar colony. And then he wrote Hail Mary, Project Hail Mary. And I'm not going to say anything about it because the book is so good. I'm just going to say that it touches on what Julia is telling us right now.
Wow. That's fabulous. Okay. So now you also said you're going to tell us, what do we hope happens, or what's going to happen if an extraterrestrial receives this message? Like, what is the end goal?
Now,
what do we want?
We don't know what part of it will receive, because you think about the living creatures that share our planet with us. They experience the world very differently. We humans see and hear and smell a very thin sliver of the universe.
Right.
We cannot smell as good as dogs. We cannot see as well as hawk. We cannot see in infrared as snakes. We cannot taste with our legs as butterflies do.
You're blowing my mind here, Julia.
We cannot hear with our knees as katydids. So we don't know whether extraterrestrials are living, whether they're marine animals, right? Whether they're in the ocean. All life on Earth started in the ocean, and maybe on other planets, the intellectual creatures developed in the ocean, right? So we don't know whether they can see it or whether they see it, but in a different way, in a different part of the spectrum, whether they will be able to touch it, whether they have 8 arms as octopuses, how they will perceive the message that we are sending them. They're definitely not going to look like humans, most probably, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I don't even know what to say to all of this. I'm just like, whoa, this is so like, wow, just wow.
Now, their planet is probably different. They probably have different gravity. They probably have different viscosity of the atmosphere. They have a different composition of the atmosphere. We don't know whether they can see at all or whether they're like bats that use echolocation. We don't know whether they have the sense of electric fields like lots of fish do.
Right.
Yeah, like electric eels. I mean.
Right. So we have no idea. So we're sending a message, but we have no idea how it will be perceived. We don't know whether it will be offensive to them.
Right.
It will be fun. Whether they will perceive it as a hoax.
Who are these people? What is this? Why do they have 1.5 legs?
Okay. So we've talked a lot about our message going out, and you just gave us a whole mind-opening list of ways that humans could think differently about it based on other forms of life here on Earth. Again, all Earthlings, but not all human. I would like to turn that around and ask you, in what other ways could we maybe be listening for or searching for a signal that's coming to us?
Yeah.
So, quite recently, there was a project called A Sign from Space, if I remember the name correctly. But the idea is that some astronomers and artists got together and designed a message to be sent, a radio signal to be sent to Earth from a satellite without telling anyone how to decode it.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Now, lots and lots of enthusiasts from all over the globe who got this strange radio signal that kind of could be a signal from extraterrestrials, right? And the designers were trying to make it as non-human as possible, right? So they're trying to decode it, and they haven't succeeded yet.
Okay.
Wow.
So we cannot decode even a human
even something that humans created.
Exactly.
Wow.
So there was another one. There was a Voynich manuscript. I think it was discovered like in the 15th, 16th century. And people are still trying to decode it. It has some nice pictures of flowers and something that looked like a text.
Okay.
But no one, linguists, AI, researchers, people were trying to decode it, and no one succeeded over the centuries. We still don't know whether it's a real text or whether it's hoax. So we're having issues decoding our own messages, like decoding something that is non-human, maybe.
Well, so is it possible that we could be receiving messages and we don't even know it because we can't figure out what it is? I mean, I'm not saying people that there's aliens or whatever. I'm just saying, I mean, is it possible?
First of all, we may be receiving messages and not have the technology to recognize them. Just think about our ancestors several centuries ago. Even if the Earth is bombarded by radio signals, but you don't have a radio receiver,
then yes, that's true. That's true. Oh
maybe someone is sending us messages, but we have no idea that we are getting them.
And we could be sending messages that they can't decode too. I assume that goes both ways, right?
If you think about the history of SETI, we invented radio and we started sending radio signals.
Right.
Then we invented lasers and we started sending,
lasers
signals, by lasers. Well, next time around, we will invent something else. And then, of course, we will think, of course, now we can use this technology, right?
Sure.
There may be so many different ways of sending signals that we are not aware of yet. Our civilization, in terms of being a technological civilization, is just a baby civilization.
Yes.
We started using technology very recently.
Yes.
We don't even know what we will achieve in several centuries, especially now with the powerful AIs that really...
I love how mind-opening this conversation is.
Yes.
You say the word alien or extraterrestrial or ET, and a lot of people just kind of close off of, they don't want to get into a conversation like that. But the different avenues that you've sort of opened up our thinking to on how to send a message out or how we might listen for a message, that I think really changes the nature of the conversation because it focuses more on us, our capabilities, and different ways of thinking that maybe we haven't before. Yeah. I'm really enjoying that. So I would like to ask, because I got to introduce you, we've been talking a lot about that message. Can you tell us a little bit about being the founder of Art of Inquiry?
Mm-hmm.
So for many years, and I'm a mom of 3 kids, I was thinking how the education should look like in the 21st century.
Okay.
And my answer to that was that we really need to start developing a planetary view to see not just our local city or even nation, but actually start thinking about our planet and how we should care about our planet and how unique it is.
Right.
And also how similar it is to other planets. I also wanted to talk to the kids about the things we don't know. In many cases, adults come to the kids with answers.
Yep.
I wanted to share the questions.
Oh, yay!
Nice.
Love it. Love it.
Nice.
You came to the right place. Jeff and I both think that way.
I really wanted to show them how much we don't know.
Yes.
And we don't know some fundamental things. For example, how did the life start?
Right.
And this is what astrobiology is all about. So I was developing classes about our search for life in space, both in the solar system, and my background with human space flight actually helps me a lot with that. I'm talking to kids about which planets, which celestial objects we can visit in our solar system to search for life. And there are many, amazingly many of those. But also talking with the kids about the hypothesis, like about how would the life start? How do complex things emerge from simpler things?
Yes. Yes.
So
be curious. Yes.
Complexity and emergence are some amazing terms that we are discussing with the kids. Feedback loops, how things are interconnected, how things develop in time. So I thought systems thinking, right?
Yes.
I thought that these are the things that we really owe to our kids. We really need to discuss it with them. That's how it all started. So after we discussed the search for life in space, the kids asked me, how do aliens think? I said, what?
I have no idea.
They told me, tell us. So I came to my husband, who is a cognitive psychologist. How do aliens think? I don't know about aliens, but we can talk about how non-human mind works and how much do we actually know about our own mind and the minds of other living things we are sharing this planet with.
Right.
And we developed a course on cognitive sciences when we talk about how do other living creatures perceive the world. And then we started talking about how did the brain emerge? And then from there, how do we actually design an AI? How do we design a neural network? And it took us into the intricacies of AI development history and pros and cons of AI, and then back to space science and how do we actually use AI in our space. Studies.
I think that's a course I want to take. That sounds very cool. All of that, learning all of those. And I love how you don't have a problem with saying, I don't know. And I think that's what some people who work with kids sometimes feel that, like I taught science for a long time. I wasn't afraid of it to say, I don't know. That's a really good question. Let's go figure it out together instead of, like you said, adults feel like they have to have all the answers. And that's not necessarily true because we don't. Right. I mean, I don't. I know I don't. This is so intriguing. And we could talk forever, but we are at that point in the show where I want to ask our guest, what challenge do you have for our listeners,
this is going to be
Julia?
Good.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, first of all, they can try to draft a message to extraterrestrials, right?
There you go.
Okay.
So think about whether you want to send it in all directions at the same time, whether you have a certain exoplanet in mind. And exoplanets are planets outside of the solar system. And you can go to NASA Exoplanet Counter and see how fast we're finding those planets.
Yes.
I check it every month.
Yes. Yes.
And choose an exoplanet that you like the best. And
I like that.
Think about what kind of creatures can live on that planet. If this planet is all covered with an ocean, you design your message one way, right?
Yeah. They might live in the ocean. Yeah.
Design it another way. If it is a tidally locked planet, meaning that it faces its sun always with one side, so
Right.
maybe life lives only in the twilight zone, or maybe the life lives only on the side that is facing its star. How would those creatures live and evolve? How would you design a message to them? So choose your favorite exoplanet and design a message specifically for those creatures.
I love it.
I do too. This is so awesome. Oh my gosh. I have learned so much and I have so many other questions now, Julia. So we're going to have you back on our show so Jeff and I can confer and come up with a whole bunch of questions for you. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being on Solve It for Kids, Julia.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you too.
How fun and unique a conversation about talking about aliens and talking to aliens was that?
Amazing! It was amazing!
That was so much fun. And the fun gets to continue with Julia's challenge for all of us to draft a message to extraterrestrials. Not only do you have to figure out what you would say, but she also took it a dimension further in how are you going to send it out there? Are you going to send it in all directions? Are you going to send it in the direction of a specific exoplanet maybe that's already been discovered? She took it and jumped it right into real world science that's happening right now. Talk about fun.
Right. And you know, the thing is we all joke about aliens, but there's actually kind of real scientists out there that are studying life on other planets or looking for it and all these kinds of things. So yes, who knows? I love how she left the question with, have we actually met an alien and we don't know, right? I mean, science is, I think, all about possibilities, right? And I hope that's what a lot of people get out of this episode. I think this was so much fun and very thought-provoking, too. So if you listen to this episode and you have some thoughts about what you would say to an alien, we would love to hear from you.
Yes.
Please tag us on our social media. We are at KidSolve at Facebook, Instagram, and X. And also, don't forget to check out our website, solveitforkids.com, where you can leave us a message there, but also learn tons more about Julia, what she does, and also many different ways people have studied to figure out how they might talk to aliens.
There are so many different ways, and this is definitely one of those topics that could send you down a rabbit hole. As soon as something piques your interest, you're going to learn more, and then you're going to learn more. This is going to be a lot of fun, so everybody get out there and do that challenge. Jen and I will be trying to figure out what we would send them as a message out to ET. And until next time, you'll hear Jen and Jeff still here on Earth on Solve It for Kids.